My adventures with Superman continues this week with the season 2 episode titled The Machine Who Would Be Empire. Superman has been captured by Kara Zor-El, his cousin, who, as it turns out, is part of a fledgling Kryptonian empire that Kara's quote-unquote father and controller, Primus, wants to bring back into full power. Clark is whisked away from Earth and into deep space by Kara, and along their trip, she tries to convince Clark that they need to bring back the Kryptonian empire, luring him in with the idea of other Kryptonians still being alive, like her father. Clark decides to go with Kara and learns a lot about Krypton, and the show's version of Krypton is completely unique to what we've seen before. There's a few connective things like Krypton seemingly being peaceful and sort of the hierarchy of it all with councils and whatnot, but it's very much its own thing, and it's developing off stuff we've seen through season 1 and the first half of season 2, where it just looks all completely different with all its technology. It's not like, crystals and crystal caves and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of a blend of all of these different ones, but also its own unique thing. I also kind of like there's a little bit of a Rashomon sort of thing happening here, whereas we've seen what Krypton was like and could have been like thanks to Clark getting visions of it and it being, entrenched in warfare and just like giant battles and everything. But then we also see Kara's point of view this episode where she has memories of, what it was like as it was peaceful and everything, which doesn't make any sense because we as viewers know that she left Krypton as a baby, much like her cousin Cal. So these memories, are they implants? Are they memories that she's been told to look at that maybe Primus has massaged or edited to make it look like, oh, this is what we're fighting for, and trying to convince her to join him? And it's thanks to these memories that Clark decides to show Kara what Earth is like, and using a special memory device, he shows her his time with Ma and Pa Kent and how they raised him. I really like the way the show is developing Clark and Kara's relationship. They feel more like a brother and sister this time around than cousins, and Clark tries to convince Kara to follow her own path, not what someone else like Primus is demanding of her. Speaking of Primus, once Kara's ship goes off course to show Clark a little bit of the universe, he sends off some of his drones to catch her and her cousin, as they are busy having a space snowball fight with some space snow they found floating around the planet Thanagar, which Kara wants to show Clark, believing that they have brought the Kryptonian Empire to Thanagar and has thus made it like a thriving civilization. Only she comes to realize very, very quickly that that's the complete opposite, as Thanagar has been completely wiped out. If it's not obvious at this point, Kara has been mind controlled by Primus to destroy these civilizations, and she can't remember what has happened. I guess this is how the show is going to kind of absolve Kara of a lot of the evil she has done under Primus's control. It's not her technically doing all of this, and it's a very comic book thing to do, a character under mind control, wasn't in control of their actions, so they're not really, held by those actions anymore. And I guess that's what we're going to get here when she finally breaks free. She's going to be a hero, and no one's going to really say anything because she was under mind control. This also gives Clark a bit more of a reason to want to get away from Primus and get Kara away from Primus, since if he can control Kara, then he can control Clark. The show so far has done an excellent job changing up familiar characters, but still keeping their pathos and story through line intact, and I feel like we're getting that here with Kara, since just like when we first meet her in the comics, a lot of the times she's very headstrong, she's arrogant, and she thinks she knows what's best, since she's usually a teenager and has been through some stuff by the time she gets to Earth. So I like that they've kind of got that, and they've also combined it with a lot of the natural aspects of her as a character. She's a very kind-hearted and wants to help, but needs direction, and I love that that is what the show is using Clark here for, to give her some direction and to kind of impart the wisdom that he got from Ma and Pa Kent onto her. The drones catch up with them and take them back to Kandor, Primus's base of operations. The show takes a really awesome twist here, as it's revealed that Primus isn't Zor-El at all, it's Brainiac. Primus Brainiac to be specific. It's pretty obvious that Primus is Brainiac thanks to all of the Brainiac symbology around the character, but I like that my theory that Kara was seemingly found by Brainiac and raised as his daughter turned out to be true as well. We still have yet to actually see that, but all of the implications are there for that to have actually happened. Krypton. Brainiac's origins here are pretty similar to the animated series Brainiac, where he was the AI who ran the Kryptonians' computer systems back on Krypton before he went rogue and decided he wanted a true Krypton. Brainiac manages to convince Superman to see his vision of Krypton, and it begins with him testing Superman's skills, pitting him through a bunch of different hologram drones of those who didn't comply with the original Kryptonian Empire. So Superman is forced to battle things like Thanagarian, a Parademon, and even a Green Lantern. Superman gets some really cool fights with the holograms. Again, the show does really great fights with Superman, using his abilities really well, and I like that we again get to see the laser beam freeze breath again. And all the way through the fight, Brainiac is kind of monologuing about how he wants to return to a warlike empire and subjugate those who disagree. He also wants to use Superman's special electric blue power, which we've seen over the course of both seasons, and it sounds like he wants to power a weapon with it or subjugate Superman's mind and use him as the weapon. Just kind of the only part of the show I don't particularly get, because so far he seems to have been doing a pretty good job with just Kara. Like, he subjugated many worlds, Thanagar included. That's not really an easy world to, destroy or get one over on. And so far he's done all right with her as sort of the leader of his army. So it's very strange that he wants Superman now. And I guess it's just because he's got like this extra power that Kara doesn't have. And I guess the show just needs to explain the power a little bit better than it has so far. And maybe that's going to be a big reveal that there is something special about Clark that he has, that, I don't know, he's some ancient Kryptonian myth or something. He's once in a generation or something, which I guess would be fitting with, Moses allegories that he usually has attached to the character. So hopefully they do explain that a little bit more, but that's the only part of this plan Brainiac has that doesn't really make much sense to me, since he seems to be doing a pretty good job without having Superman's new electric blue power on his arsenal. The cracks in Kara's control also begin to form at this point, thanks to the keepsakes she's been keeping from the various worlds she's been on. And she goes and checks on these worlds only to find that they haven't been brought into the Kryptonian Empire, they've all been destroyed. And she learns on Thanagar that she was the one who did it while under Brainiac's control. All of this helps to free Kara from Brainiac's control, and she's left to come up with a way to try and help her cousin. In most universes, it's kind of the opposite way, where Kara was sent to Earth alongside her cousin to be his protector, but then, she gets knocked off course, sent to the Phantom Zone or wherever, and kind of grows up a little bit more while Clark grows into an adult. And I like that they've kind of done it differently here, where they're both the same age, but they're still bringing it back to that story where now Kara has to try and protect Clark from his Kryptonian heritage, from what the Kryptonian Empire is. And I think that's really interesting, and a really interesting change on what we usually see in the comics. Kara is obviously thoroughly distraught at everything that's happening, but she can't properly grieve as she intercepts a ship which jumps out near Thanagar. And much to her and our surprise, it's being controlled by Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and Monsieur Mallah. My guess is the next episode is going to show everything from Jimmy and Lois's POV, and I love that they are bringing characters from season 1 back and continuing their stories here, building how on in season 1 Mallah and Living Brain were helped by Clark and the others, so it's only fitting that Mallah returned the favor here. Doing that leads to a great dichotomy between Superman and Brainiac, and it's something that we've actually been seeing in the comics right now in House of Brainiac, which is that Superman has friends and family around him, he has a team around him, and that's really his strongest power of them all, that he's always able to have people that are around him to help, and he doesn't just rely on himself to do all of this like Brainiac does, who Brainiac only wants himself to be the one constant in the universe. And I like that we're actually getting that in this season now, where all of these people are sort of coming together to help Superman and in turn help Kara as well. My Adventures with Superman Season 2 Episode 6 was another really fantastic episode. This episode revealed a lot of things that I think a lot of people already put together, like with Brainiac and Kara being controlled by Brainiac, but I like that there was still some twists and turns in there, like Zor-El was nowhere in the picture and Kara was seemingly raised by him. I think that's really cool and a really nice change of pace for the character as well. The Clark and Kara dynamic is really awesome as well. It feels a bit more like a brother and sister sort of duo instead of a cousins. And I'm looking forward to seeing Kara develop more as a character over the coming episodes as Jimmy and Lois get back in on the story. The only thing I didn't particularly like is Brainiac's overall plan for Superman, since Kara seems to be filling in quite well for Superman in that regard, so I don't think he needs Superman all that badly, but of course we need to move the plot forward a little bit, but that's the only thing I didn't didn't really like about the episode. I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10.